Employment, Lou Weiss over at Manufacturing Talk Radio. Lou, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So what about these employment numbers? They don't really tell the whole story because really we have this thing called the workforce participation rate, which has gone up slightly under Trump, but not that substantially. But it does seem that in a lot of parts of the country, a lot of industries are unable to fill jobs.
That's true. And to a great extent, that's in manufacturing to the Midwest. We talk to a lot of people out there. We have a lot of our listeners there. And, the problem, of course, is that there's a shrinking labor force, retirees, death, and a smaller workforce coming into the workforce. So it's a bit of a triangle, and it's not going to get any better unless organizations such as states, government, and local government, and the schools to do training. And there's a lot of that actually going on. I think that one thing that would really help it the best, and I'm beginning to hear rumors to that effect, that these states are beginning to join together in groups, regional groups, to create better educational facilities and being able to put together deals to get people to stay on work longer with incentives, train other newbies coming into the workforce. But if anybody's waiting for the federal government to really step up, I think you got a long wait.
Yeah.
So we're enjoying the conversation that we're having with people that are starting really thinking out of the box about the way things are heading, which of course is what's going to help keep manufacturing growing. I think that the ISM, the Institute of Supply Management numbers came out Friday, and the non-manufacturing came out today, and both are in the 58th percentile, which is very strong. Anything over 50 is perfectly showing growth, and that's where we're at. But there are some headwinds that we're going to be facing, and I don't want to steal your whole platform here, Kerry, but the metal tariffs are really going to cause a problem
if they should occur. It's by no means assured.
Well, they have already occurred, and I blame the media for not really stepping up and painting the true picture. Steel and aluminum the tariff went into effect on March 23rd. The reason why I know that is because my primary business, All Metals and Forge Group, got hit with a Homeland Security bill dated March 23rd for a tariff on a shipment that we received in California. And so it really started then. I think what didn't start until it's either last Friday or this coming Friday, where there's 1,300 items that are going to be tariffed. A good part of it is from Europe, and a good part is from our very best allies, Canada and Mexico. And I think these are the things that's going to potentially cause a trade war. And trade wars don't work. Well, you can ask Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, well, things are a little different now than during Herbert Hoover's times, obviously. Interesting thing is, Canada and Mexico have become like little more than transshipment backdoor for China to ship goods to the U.S. tariff-free. And that's right. What the U.S. is refusing to accept any longer because it's a scam. Look, a car now to be considered to be manufactured in North America could often have less than 50% parts composition in North America from North American parts makers and the rest from China. Right. So, look, be honest about it and don't run a scam on the U.S. And that's what Canada and Mexico are doing. And look, they can bitch about it all they like, but it's going to hurt them a heck of a lot worse than it's going to hurt the U.S.
Well, Canada is our biggest trading partner, and they do need to fix the NAFTA, which they do actually do every year. They modify it and bring it up to speed. But if we do away with NAFTA, we're going to lose 200,000 jobs here in the United States.
Supposedly.
And that's not something that, I'm sorry?
Supposedly.
Well, yeah, supposedly or unless. But, there seems to be, when George W. did it, he lost 230,000 manufacturing jobs in this country when he imposed his Canadian tariff. So there's some histrionics here that can prove that it could happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you look, though, at Mexico, seventh largest trading partner of the U.S.,
right.
What's, we're their first largest trading partner. So, and look, the Mexican thing with the immigration out of control, they could put a stop to that in a week. Okay. Mexico could stop it. But they have no desire to, and they've never had their feet held to the fire to do it. So maybe the time is now. Generally a free trader, but when free trade becomes an excuse just to rip the country off, that's where I kind of draw the line. Free trade for the sake of free trade. When we started NAFTA, the U.S. had a surplus with Mexico. Now I think we got a $70 billion a year deficit. Yeah. And that's strictly as a result of Chinese goods masquerading as Mexican goods moving across the border. And of course, they don't want the gravy train to end. So, hey, but let's move on to taxes. What impact is the tax reform having upon manufacturing companies across the country? Well,
I personally, and this is just a personal thing, I don't refer to it as tax reform. I call it a tax cut. They haven't reformed the tax system in a bazillion decades. So the tax reform, the tax discount is going to help the big people. I'm not sure, and actually the tax cut on manufacturing hasn't really yet started showing up in the numbers. It's probably going to be another 30 or 60 days where you're going to see if, in fact, it's all cracked up to be what it's supposed to be. Personally, I think it's going to show improvement, but I think it's going to be short-lived. Because and inflation has already started, according to MAPI, according to Institute of Supply Management, and so on. So it's already started, but our numbers are still so high and so good, no one's paying a whole lot of attention on that. But I think it remains to be seen. I think that manufacturing has gotten a benefit by the fact that they can write off new equipment today instead of waiting 5 years, or a little bit over every year for 5 years. So that's a good thing. So, they're getting higher productivity equipment that will also help and assist in the skill gap and so on. But that's where I see it. I think that we're probably 2 months away from seeing it reflect one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've seen certainly a lot of companies raise wages, benefits, give out bonuses, even Starbucks. A company that was vehemently opposed to any kind of tax cuts were really their employees became beneficiaries of it. Thousands of companies have done this, so it has to be having some effect. And look, where the people who do it, big corporations get the best benefit from it, obviously, because they saw their tax rate go from 30 plus percent, 36% down to 21%, which is 36.7% down to 21%, huge savings. Yeah. But the guy making $50,000 to $75,000 a year, besides maybe getting those bonuses from Starbucks at all, Costco, whatever, also saw his tax bill get cut way, way back. So, he's getting several thousand more. Yes, there's inflation. There's always been inflation. The true rate of price increases has been distorted by the government for many years, and perhaps it's going up. Perhaps it's a game. So, there's definitely things happening there, and certainly it's helped keep the stock market afloat. And GDP growth, right now it's been over 3%. It hadn't done 3% growth in all of Obama's 2 terms and W's last 2 or 3 years in office. So GDP growth is definitely up. Now, debt is also up, not necessarily a positive thing for sure at all levels of society, the federal deficit, everything. How long can that go on? I don't know. Yeah. But we've got a lot of factors. So, well,
they're projecting 4% this year. Mm-hmm. So unless we hit some major headwinds, that would be really a good thing to see happen.
Yeah, it's kind of baked into the cake. At this point, we're already mid-year. Let's face it, half the year's over. Economy doesn't just turn around in 6 months, and these things generally tend to go around election cycles as well. Hey, so the concept of not enough workers, though, we definitely see that in the manufacturing sector, right? Because the younger people, for some reason, don't think it's cool to be in manufacturing. Why is that?
Well, I think some people are still of the belief that manufacturing is dark, dirty, and dangerous. Meanwhile, if you've traveled around at all to manufacturing in the last couple of years, a lot of the manufacturing plants are, they're carrying iPads and wearing white coats. So, and I've seen this. So there's a change. And I think the other major change is parental guidance. I think that from the last generation, it was always you have to go to college. You got to get a degree. You can't get a good job unless you have a college degree. And it's so totally untrue, particularly today. Today, a welder who goes in for a Class 1 welding, he'll be making $75,000 in 2 years after he gets his certification. If you take underwater welding, this is insane. They make $150,000 a year, plus benefits, bonuses, 401ks, and so on. So you're talking about $200,000 a year and never went to college. Uh-huh. So the parents, there was an event about 3 months ago all over the country where parents were invited into schools to be spoken to about this topic. Manufacturing is not a bad thing. We're always going to need manufacturing, whether we have robots or we have any other productivity improvements. There's still going to have to be manufacturing.
Yeah.
And they just have to see that, going to college and having a $200,000 debt, which is going to take you 30 years to pay off, and not that there's anything wrong with it, but you're not going to make that money back being a school teacher.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey, or being a barista at Starbucks, making $15 an hour as opposed to a welder. I got an email from somebody who said, I'm a welder and I don't make $70,000. He was like in Alabama or deep south someplace. But a qualified welder, the numbers you're talking about, this is what they earn, like in places in the Midwest, in the East Coast, right?
Absolutely.
Maybe a little less down south. So
no question about it. We had 4 vice presidents on our show from Huntington Ingalls shipyards, and you could be sure that their welders that are building the ships in this country are making 150 plus.
Is that right?
And they're always looking for them.
Yeah, they're never out of work.
and they have their own training programs. You can go for a year training outside. You can come into what they call a 4-year training program, and they take you through the whole steps. They want and need employees, and they're willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.